Welcome back to the Storytime series. We are talking about trimester 3 right after this. Welcome to Midlife Mama. I am Tiffany, and on this channel I share videos and vlogs about my life after becoming a first-time mom at 46. So if you're new here, consider subscribing, joining the YouTube family, and coming along for the ride. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for rocking with me and welcome back. Today's video is the continuation of the Storytime series that I started covering my pregnancy. We are in the 3rd trimester today, talking about all the things. So if you missed any of this series, everything's linked down below. I will iCard it up at the top. But we have talked about the day I discovered I was pregnant, the 1st trimester and the 2nd trimester. So now we're going to get into the 3rd trimester. I hope you have been enjoying this series. I know it's been a while and there's been a little bit of a break between the videos, and that is just because I have been dealing with some stuff that I will inform you guys on a little bit later on. But anyway, so we're back to filming videos and stuff again, and so we are starting with this one. Before I ramble on too much further, let's just get into the video. So let's just talk about testing right off the bat. The only test I really had during the 3rd trimester was the gestational diabetes test, where you drink that orange drink and they check your sugar. That test was normal for me, and no issues there. I did mention in the 2nd trimester video that something major did happen here in the 3rd trimester, and we're going to get to that in a second. But I want to talk about symptoms first. So I have some notes here, so I'll be looking down at the notes. So pretty much symptoms: still dealing with heartburn. I had heartburn all the way through my pregnancy. If you have been watching the whole series, then you know it started very early on in my pregnancy and it was relentless all the way through. So at the 3rd trimester, still dealing with a lot of heartburn, and at this point I am sleeping sitting up. The doctor did tell me it was okay for me to take Zantac, sparingly, but it was okay for me to take it if it was absolutely unbearable. I took it a few times in the 3rd trimester. I took it a few times to give myself some relief and let me be able to sleep. The next symptom, right around 32 weeks, I started to get backaches because I guess I was getting bigger, and so I started to experience some backaches. I was also still working at this time. I worked pretty much all the way through my pregnancy. So in the early weeks of my 1st trimester, I started to get bigger, and there was a lot of things that I could not do at work. As far as a couple of things, I couldn't really make focaccia very easily. I really had to have help with that. Big mixer, I couldn't bend over and get the dough out of the mixer, and I could not fit in the freezer to take things back to the freezer. I couldn't get past the racks in the freezer, so those were some hindrances for me. The backaches started right about 32 weeks, like I said. I was starting to get fatigued again, so the fatigue started to return. It was not as bad as it was in the 1st trimester, but I was starting to get really tired very easily. So I would come home from a day of work and kick my shoes off, put on something comfortable, and sit in my little corner of the sofa and put my feet up, lift my shirt up, and have my belly out. That was my position after work every day. So I think I have a picture of it, I think I have a picture, so if so, I'll insert it somewhere around here. But that was my position: come home, rest, feet up, belly out, and watching, you know, my belly for movements and stuff like that. The other symptom I had was frequent trips to the bathroom. Nivea seemed to really favor stretching out onto my bladder. So she seemed to really favor that in the last trimester. And Nevaeh, she was really not she wasn't a kicker or a puncher. Like, she didn't do a lot of this kind of movement, but she did a lot of stretching. So she would stretch and stay. So I would feel like her right up in here. I would feel her here, and she would just stay there. And I couldn't tell if it was, I could sometimes tell if it was her head or her feet, but like, she would stretch and just sort of linger, like stay right there for a minute, and then she would move, and then she would roll. And she was a roller and a stretcher. So sometimes she would stretch and just sort of leave her foot on my bladder, which was uncomfortable. Anyway, my ankles started to swell at this point. Later in the trimester, I started to get swollen ankles. I remember one time we were at Target and we were shopping for baby stuff and other stuff, and my mom looked down at my ankles and she said, "Let's go." And I was like, "What is wrong?" She's like, "Look at your ankles, let's go. We need to get you off your feet." So I looked down at my ankles and they were super big. They were swollen. And I was like, "Oh my God, my feet are so fat." They were swollen. So we paid for our stuff and booked it out of Target so I could get my feet up. But it's funny, my mom, she was like a watchdog. She watched everything for me during this time. She was watching for preeclampsia, so she was watching for signs, and she was pretty much on it. So anytime she saw a swollen ankle or a swollen toe or anything, she lay down, put your feet up, lay down and put your feet up. Let's make sure you're okay. I was having trouble sleeping because I was having a hard time finding a comfortable position. My favorite position was on my left side with my pillow between my legs and right up under my belly, and that's how I was able to kind of get a little bit of sleep. The other favorite position was, of course, me sitting up, because laying down really sort of was a recipe for disaster when it came to the heartburn. I could lay on my left side like that if I had taken a Zantac to keep the heartburn at bay. Otherwise, I pretty much kind of slept sitting up the last few weeks of my pregnancy. Okay, and so that's really it for symptoms. Emotionally, I did start to feel maybe some anxiety about labor and birth and all of that, but I really didn't feel kind of out of control with my hormones or anything like that. Still a little bit sensitive, but the crying was under control by the third trimester, and I was really just starting to anticipate, like anticipation about actually having to give birth. So that was pretty much it for emotions. Now let's get into the thing that happened in the third trimester. Right at about 28 weeks, I went in for a 28-week scan, and at this point, you know, I'm spending a lot of time on my apps and looking to see what's going on with my baby. So the app's telling me the Nevaeh should be, you know, right around two pounds. She should be right around 2 pounds, or just a little, and a couple of ounces. And Nevaeh was 1.13 ounces at that scan. And I remember the ultrasound tech being very quiet during that, and I said, "Is that small?" And she said, "Well, the doctor will come and talk to you," which made me feel even more anxious about it. And so eventually he came in and talked to me about Nevaeh being growth restricted. The term is intrauterine growth restriction, or IUGR, and she was mildly growth restricted. And I don't want to get into the specifics of IUGR, but I will put a link in the description box so you guys can read more information about that. The first thing I asked was, "Is there anything I can do to help that?" And he said, "No, definitely do what you've been doing with your diet and keeping your blood pressure under control, but having high blood pressure contributes to your baby being growth restricted sometimes." And that's what happened with me. So it contributed to I guess it contributes to your placenta being able to work at full capacity if you have chronic hypertension or high blood pressure during pregnancy. And so that was my situation. So my placenta wasn't functioning exactly as it was supposed to, so Nevaeh wasn't growing as fast, so she was just behind. She was in the 5th percentile for babies at that gestational age. So the treatment for that was for me to now move from going to the doctor every 4 weeks then to me going every week. So I went every week to the doctor. I got an ultrasound, and I got they hooked me up to a monitor, and they monitored her heart rate for about an hour. And I just pretty much did that every week, every Monday. I was at the doctor getting an ultrasound, and they were testing for the blood flow from the umbilical cord to Nevaeh, and they were testing my placenta to see if it was operating, and they were watching for the blood flow to her brain activity to see if she was functioning normally. In Nevaeh, she seemed to be normal through the whole time, the whole time I was being monitored. Nothing really scary other than the fact that she actually was behind in the lower percentiles for growth. I wasn't experiencing any symptoms or anything like that. My blood pressure hovered around the 140s over 90s kind of the whole time I was pregnant, and my doctor seemed to be fine with that. But she was growing a little bit slower, so not extremely growth restricted, but she was growth restricted. So they tested me right at about 36 weeks, and Nevaeh, I'm sorry, they tested me right at about 32, 34 weeks, I think. And Nevaeh had done a growth spurt, and she had jumped to the 10th percentile. And they consider, what put Nevaeh in the intrauterine growth restriction category was that she was in those lower percentiles. She was in the 5th percentile. Anything under 10%, they categorize as growth restricted, and they monitor you very closely. So Nevaeh was in the 5th percentile. She jumped up to the 10th percentile. Right at about 38 weeks, she dropped back down to 5. She was in the 5th percentile again. So we decided that at that point it was going to be time for me to be induced. So in the 3rd trimester, that is the large thing that happened. The scariest thing that happened was finding out Nevaeh was growth restricted. She wasn't growing as quickly as she should be, but she did have a growth spurt that, you know, pushed her up to the 10th percentile, which made me relax a little bit. And then she went back down to the 5th percentile, and that's when we decided that I was going to be induced for labor. And I'm gonna probably, I want to cover the highlights, but that is what happened with growth restriction for Nevaeh. Right at about 28 weeks. She came through that like a champ. She came through it. And so right at about 38, 39 weeks, we decided it was time for her to be born. And we'll get into the birth story in the next video, but let's cover the highlights. So the highlights: my baby shower happened in October. October 23rd, I believe it was. I will insert some photos of that event so you guys can see. I don't think I didn't vlog it or anything like that, but I did have a great time at my baby shower. My family and friends came through like champions, and it was a great day, being surrounded by all of my loved ones, my tribe, my crew. It was great to have them all there. There were a couple of missing faces, but they were there in spirit and with me, and I felt their presence in that day. It was just a good day. It was a good day. My sister and my niece were here, and that was nice to have. It was nice to have them there, and it was just a good day. So my baby shower, it worked out really well. It was yellow, because y'all know I love yellow. So it was yellow. So the baby shower was a good time. I really started nesting, getting Nevaeh's clothes together, washing, folding, getting her sleeping area together, getting her ready for downstairs, her area ready for downstairs with her pack and play. The big stuff started to come in, like strollers, pack and plays, bassinets, car seats, all that stuff started to come in. So I was able to put things together fairly early. I did a hospital visit at 32 weeks. And I did a hospital visit early. Kind of felt silly going because I guess I was so anxious though. So I kind of felt silly going to the hospital that early, but we went to the hospital visit, which was fun to see, you know, kind of what I was going to be experiencing when it was my turn, when it's time for me to go to the hospital. So that was nice. I really did love that hospital where I had Nevaeh. It was a Dignity Health hospital, and I really did enjoy my experience with having my baby there. At 32 weeks, I went and registered for the hospital. My doctor and I did talk about my birth plan. So my birth plan was to have her naturally and all of that, but I don't want to talk too much about that because I want to cover that in the next video. So I'm going to end this video here. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for keeping up with me. I appreciate it. I think that first videos got lots of views, so I appreciate you guys hanging with me in this series, and I hope you have enjoyed this walk down memory lane with me of my 3rd trimester of my midlife pregnancy. Catch up with me on Instagram and Facebook at Midlife Mama. The Instagram handle will just pop up, but it's Midlife Mama on both. So follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe if you haven't done that already. Check out the comments down below. Make sure you let me know you were here. Leave a comment, and I'm in the comments for the first 2 hours every time I post a video. So I would love it if you guys would chat. If you are in a midlife pregnancy, comment down below. Let me know how you're doing and how it's going. What trimester are you in, and how are things going for you? I think that's it. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourself and take care of each other, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Mommy, there's no more.
There's no more. Go get another one. I'll open it for you. Go get another one.
What you got?
I'm filming. Can you close the door?
Yeah.
Thanks, honey.